big question for independent producers. You've got a script, you know it's going to be the next big thing, you've got a director, you've put together your package, meaning you've got maybe a couple of name actors, you might have your DP on board who's done some flashy pictures, you built a package, you're ready to go. Now it's time to actually get the money. How do you do it? Many ways to finance films. We're focusing on what's called the equity model of finance, and we're going to do pure equity.
Yeah, we should say that in our last class we talked about the definition of an independent film. It's very, very broad. The definition of an independent film would simply be any film made outside the studio system. But because Lionsgate and Summit aren't traditional studios, that would make Twilight and Hunger Games independent films. So we're looking at the films that you might start your career with, lower budget films. Those are often made without any sort of industry financing behind it. It's rich people money, and that's what we're calling equities. This is the equity finance.
These are often people's first or second films, the reason they're done this way is because there's a lower barrier to entry for this finance model. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, if I'm using another finance model, like say foreign pre-sale finance model, a studio finance model, typically I need to have a track record of having made films in order to have access to those finance models, and therefore there's a larger barrier to entry to getting that kind of financing. We're focusing today on equity financing because it's the kind of financing that is more accessible. There's a lower barrier to entry because there's a wider potential a finance base, meaning a wider potential investment base. So, by way of illustration, the Napoleon Dynamite story. Napoleon was a fantastic script that we got from a friend of ours named Jared Hess, who I'd gone to film school with. We started out, it was a hilarious movie, we knew we wanted to make it. We got a line producer friend to help us with a budget, so we had our budget. Now it was time to raise the money. You know, we had heard about a colleague of ours who came from a wealthy family, thought they might be interested in investing in film. We put together a business plan. We actually put together the night. We didn't have much cash, and we were just out of film school, just barely out of film school. It was our first movie, and neither of us thought our cars would make it all the way out to Utah, which is where this investor lived, and he wasn't coming to us. We had to go to him. So we had to pool our money, rent a car, and drive to Utah.
Which we wanted to be sensible about it, so we got the lowest economy car possible, which I believe is a Dodge Neon at the time, which is slightly larger than this bottle of water.
And Sean is slightly larger than this bottle of water in terms of height. Consequently, the night before we left, somebody was like, "Oh, you're going to your big investor meeting, huh? Oh man, I hope you got your PowerPoint ready." And we were like, "PowerPoint?
Yeah, we got a PowerPoint.
So I drove while Sean hunched up praying mantis style in the economy car with a laptop on his lap, teaching himself how to use PowerPoint as we were driving through Vegas.
Yes, we laid the whole thing out. We had our business plan. We knew that the investor was a very successful entrepreneur, and that their understanding of the film industry would not be from a creative perspective, it would be from a business perspective. And having gone to USC's Peter Stark Producing program, we had studied independent film business from the perspective of a company that John Sloss created. That's a name you should write down, John Sloss. He owns Cinetic Media. They're the preeminent sales company for Sundance. He created a slate of low-budget pictures. We'll talk about what a slate is and how that all works in a second. And when we saw that model and heard that our investor was more interested in a business model than the specific movies, we knew we had to replicate this slate of 3 pictures tied together as a single investment for you. So that was very easy to explain. Pen and paper, simple back of the envelope investing. When we found out the PowerPoint had come to play, we worked really hard. And then when we got to Utah at like 3 o'clock in the morning, the family we were going to crash with, our buddy's family, they were up and they had a friend over, which is weird that it was 3 o'clock in the morning and our buddy was there. And we're like, oh, we're so excited, we got a PowerPoint with Jazz. She's like, cool, which animation style did you use?
They have what?
What? It's like, well, you know, it comes in bullet by bullet. It's like it's an alien technology. So I stayed up the rest of the night animating every single to go through the presentation. And then about 6 o'clock the next evening, I believe it was.
We pitched the movie in the basement of the rich guy's house. while he stood behind the bar. We told this class, to those of you who are here, I apologize for retelling the story, but we have been told, okay, the investor knows you're coming, the investor's excited to talk to you, the investor thinks the screenplay is very important, script's very important. You want, bring the script with you, print out the script, bring it with you, script's important, it's paramount, it's number one concern script. So we bring the script with us, and we get there, and we start pitching, and we're about to go into our business plan and show him our spinning graphics, and he says, first, show me the script. And we're like, yes, script is very important. It's the script is the most important thing when you're making a movie. And we hand him the script, and he takes it, and he opens the first page, and he reads it. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, we're standing in front of him, we're standing up. We're thinking, is he going to make us stand here while he reads the script? Because it's so important. But he reads only the first page. Then he kind of flips through, makes sure there's writing on all the pages in the middle. And then he looks at the back page, and he looks at the page number on the back page. And then he closes it, and then he hands it to us.
Don't forget, he waited.
He kind of
sensing that.
He handed it back to us, and he says, good job on the script, give me your pitch. And that was what was so important. I realized in that moment that his expectations of us are so incredibly low that he wanted to make sure there was writing on the pages. Okay, and at that point I felt like, well, if we do even a halfway good job, they're going to better his expectations of us. So that's actually an interesting lesson, because the fact is, of all the investors we've raised money with for all the movies, now 8 that we've raised money for over the course of our 10 years in the business, 10, 12 years in the business, very, very few investors read the scripts, in our experience.
3.
Maybe.
1 was a studio.
And what does that say? Does it say that investors are morons and they need to focus on story more? No. It says that when you're going to seek investment for a film from a private equity source, meaning a high net worth individual, meaning rich people, they are going to be primarily concerned with the business aspects of what you are pitching. The story aspect is going to be only secondary because it relates to the marketing and the demographics, because there's a business function to the story.
A lot of times when you go into a high net worth individual's office or home and you're going to pitch a movie, they're flabbergasted that you understand the business behind it. And that makes me flabbergasted. They just see it as an artistic endeavor, and so they trust you with the art. That's your job. So when you start walking through the mechanics of how the money works, the lights kick on. They say investors coming into film from another industry are called dumb money, and they're certainly not dumb people. They've been successful in their own industries, or their parents have, and then they might actually be dumb people.
We've pitched dumb rich people.
Yes, how do you make a small fortune in Hollywood? You show up with a large one, right? So they can grab onto these business concepts and get really excited about it. And so that's really a major component of your pitch.
And you should be aware of that, because keep in mind, whenever we say pitch here, I know you guys are screenwriters, you're at Pitch Fest, you've been trained, you need to pitch in 5 minutes, and you need to We're not talking about story pitches in this lecture, we're talking about a business pitch, of which we're going to give you, that's not a 5-minute thing, that could be like a 25-minute thing, 30-minute thing. We're going to give you a sample here in a minute. But know that you are behind the 8 ball the minute you get to see the investor, and be aware of that. Because you are filmmakers, and you're there to talk about film, and like it or not, deserved or not, filmmakers have a perception in the business world of being kind of flaky dudes. They're like artsy dudes, and they're like, there's this whole perception of Hollywood, this whole perception of filmmaking. Which means that when you face a business person and you're across from them for a pitch, you need to be buttoned down. You need to speak the language that they speak. You need to know the business terms for what you're doing, and you need to be very focused and professional. Because that is going to subvert their expectation, that's going to speak their language, and that's going to make them take you seriously in a way that they are not before you get in that room.